30th of June, Rabbi Moore, Parsha Hashavua with Rashi, Chukas.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry I'm late.
How are you?
Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. He's busy. The next week I'm going to be sending you an invitation by email. We're making a chas. My daughter's getting married in
Mazel
10
tov.
days.
Oh,
10 days time.
Mazel tov.
Wow.
That's Hashem. Hopefully on the day of the chasna I should be able to give a share since the chasna's in the afternoon and evening. Okay.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, well, I don't need to do, don't need to go to the hairdresser. What else? Yeah. Okay. We are on chapter Chav, Pasuk base. Lou, I think we're up to your turn.
V'lo haya mayim la'edah va'yika halu al Moshe v'al Aharon. And there was no water for the congregation, and they gathered against Moshe and against Aharon.
Yeah.
So Rashi says, Lo haya mayim la'eda. There was no water for the congregation. Mikan, from here, Shekol arba'im shana, that for the entire 40 years, haya lahem habe'er, they had a well, bischus Miriam, in the merit of Miriam.
Right. Okay. Yeah, so Ma'aseh Chazal say there were three major sources of, how should we say, sustenance and protection, which the Jewish people had miraculously during the 40 years they were in the desert. They were the mon, which was like godly food, whatever. It was mon came down from heaven every morning. Okay. Then there was the water, which was like a special rock which spewed forth water, as we're going to see over here. Now more about that. And that was the mon was B'schus Moshe. And in fact, when Moshe died on Zayin Adar, that's when the mon stopped, and it lasted them till Zayin Nisan. I'm just trying to think, maybe it was longer even. I don't remember exactly, but then basically, I have to look up the pasuk in Sefer Yehoshua. Just 1 second. Hold up a second. Yehoshua. Okay. Yeah. It says, "Vayishpos Hamon mimocharas, va'achra me'avo haaretz, va'yoed b'nei Hamon, va'yochlu mitzvahs haaretz, Canaan b'shana hahi." Let me see what Rashi says on that. Just 1 second. Yeah, it was only because, that's Rashi says, only because they didn't have the man anymore. That's why the previous pasuk says they ate from the produce of the land. I hear the Metzudas David said, yeah. The Metzudas David says, even though on the month stopped on Zayin Adar, it lasted them for close to 40 days. The month they had in their kalim. It didn't normally, but from one day to the next, it would go spoil. But here, it lasted them for a long time. Okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Good. Okay, let's go weiter. Where am I here? You're right. Okay, let's continue. Mayor.
Yes.
Oh, so I was just saying there are 3 things. So it was Moshe, the schus Hamon, Miriam, we have brought in her schus came the water of the Be'er, and in the schus of Aaron there was the Anani Kovot, the pillars of cloud, which should we say gave them a boxed-in protection. It enclosed them on all sides and protected them from the elements. Okay. Pasuk Gimel.
Okay. Vayarev ha'am im Moshe. Okay, so people quarreled with Moshe. Vayomru le'mor, and they said, "Velu gavanu bigva achenu lefnei Hashem." So the lu is
Worried. Rashi says, Rashi can explain. Halavai.
Okay. So what's Gavanu?
Gavanu means we had expired, we had died.
Oh, so if only we died, the death of our brothers before Hashem?
With the death of our brothers before Hashem.
Oh. Okay.
Okay? So that's what he's saying, we're going to die here in the desert without any water. Who can survive without water in the desert? Who can survive without any water anywhere, especially in the desert?
Okay, so Velu Gavanu, if only we died, I guess. Halvei Shegavanu.
Halavai Shegavanu.
Oh, Halavai.
Was worried that we had died. Let me see how I translated Halavai. Wait a second. There we go. If only we had died.
It's Halavai, if only, okay.
Lu has to in the sense of if only.
Usually halavai has a positive connotation.
Right.
It would be nice if blah blah.
Right.
But this is
That's
a negative
what
connotation.
Rashi's saying. That's what Rashi's saying. Halavai would have been better had we died with Deva, then we should die now.
Uh-huh.
I see.
Rashi's going to say in the next person. In the Mistoma, that's why I bothered Rashi. That's why Rashi makes this point in the next Rashi. Look at the next Rashi.
Okay, Bigava Achenu. Okay, so death of our brothers. B'mitat Achenu. Oh, that's what it means. The death of by the death of our brothers. Huh?
Adever.
With plague. Oh. Okay. Let's see. Lomaid. This teaches Shet Mitat Sama Miguna Mimena. So death by thirst, I guess.
It's worse. It's the worst kind of death that there can be.
Uh-huh. Okay, and then Rashi goes on, Bigba, by death. Okay. Shame davar who? Shame davar is a noun, isn't it? So
Right, Shem Davahu, it's a noun, yes. The Rashi saying it's not a gerund form, which would mean with our brothers dying, in the dying of our brothers. Because had we died when our brothers had died, right? But you're using a gerund form had we died with the dying of our brothers. No, Rashi saying that's not the meaning. Devar means the death of our brothers.
the death.
Were it that we had died with the death, in other words, with the form of death of our brothers, of our brethren.
Okay, but mitat achenu. Okay, the lo yitachen lefarsho. So it's not possible to explain. Let's see, kishemei to achenu, or when our brothers died. She'im Cain, if that is so, haya lo linaked bigoa.
Punctuated bigvoya achem, because that's the gerund form.
Oh, bigoa.
Bigvoya achem, with the dying of our brothers. Literally, that's what it literally means. When our brothers died. But here it means bigva, with the death. Were it that we had died by the death of our brethren.
Mm-hmm.
And as Rashi means, badeva, with pestilence, with a plague.
Okay. Well, let's see any more. No, that's the end of Rashi for that
Okay.
pasuk.
Pasuk Dalet.
Pasuk Daled. Vilama ha sem es kahal Hashem el hamidbar hazeh lamus sham anachnu uve irenu. And why?
Where's why? Yeah. Blomabi, why have you brought?
Why have you brought the congregation of Hashem to this wilderness to die there? We and our animals.
Right.
No Rashi. V'lama ha'lisunu mi Mitzrayim lahavi osanu el hamakom hara hazeh lo mekom zera use'ena hagefen
V'gefen
v'rimon u'mayim ayin lishtos. Okay, so that means, and why did you bring us up from Egypt to bring us to this evil place, not a place of seed or fig tree
fig,
or
right?
grapevine or pomegranate, and there's no water to drink.
Right.
No Rashi on that. V'yavo Moshe v'Haron mipnei hakahal el Pesach ohel moed vayipelu al pneihem vayera kavod Hashem alehem. And Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the congregation to the entrance of the tent of meeting, and they fell on their faces, and the glory of Hashem appeared
To them.
on them.
Right. Okay. No Rashi there. Then we're going to see on the next thing. By the way, I want to tell you a very interesting thing. The Meshech Chochmah says a very interesting point. Not Dafka here, but in other places as well. In Parshas Akev. As we know, there's 7 species mentioned which are unique to Eretz Yisrael, or should we say, Eretz Yisrael is praised particularly for these 7 fruits, 7 species. What are they? Which is mentioned in Parshas Akev: Chitza u'Saira, Gefen u'Te'ena v'Rimoy, Eretz ze shemen u'Dvash. That's what the pasuk says. Eretz Chitza u'Saira, Gefen u'Te'ena v'Rimoy, Eretz ze shemen u'Dvash. Okay, so the Meshech Chochmah asks, by the way, there's an interesting halacha. What happens if you want to eat grapes and dates? The choice of eating dates or grapes. Which should you take now? Both of them are from the seven species. Both of them are bopriyates. Which you take first, or which one should you take to make the bracha bopriyates? So the halacha is whichever is closest to Eretz. So you've got it split into 2, the pasuk. Eretz chitosaya, the gefen u'te'ena v'rimoy, Eretz ze shemen u'dvash. And dvash refers to date nectar. Means it refers to dates. Right? Because they're so sweet and taste like honey. Akoponim, so the din is that if you have dates, you have grapes and dates, which are in front of you, and you want to eat both of them, and you want to know on which you make a bracha, you're supposed to make a bracha on the dates rather than on the grapes. Why is that? Because even though in the order of the pasuk, dates comes all the way at the end, and the grapes come at the beginning at number 3. Eretz chitosora, v'gefen teina v'rimai, Eretz shemen u'dvash. However, the Gemara says the halacha is, since the pasuk is split into 2, and it says Eretz chitosora, v'gefen teina v'rimai, Eretz ze shemen u'dvash. The Eretz is put in another time there, second time. And since Dvash is the second one after the second Eretz, and Gefen is only the third one after the first Eretz, so therefore Dvash, i.e. dates, come before grapes. That's the halacha. Means if you have a choice, you want to eat both dates and grapes, you make a bracha on the dates and not on the grapes. Okay, obviously the bracha on the date will pater the grapes. So ask the Meshech Chochmah a very simple question. If this is the case, that whichever is closest to Eretz comes first. So why did the Torah do it in such a funny way? It writes twice Eretz, and then it puts Eretz Zeh Shemen Udvash at the end. The Torah should have written simply Eretz Chita V'zei V'zei Shemen Sa'ira V'dvash Gefen Teina V'rimoi. Because that's the halacha, that's the way it comes out. By the way, what comes closest to the first Eretz comes before what's closer to the second Eretz. That's why I mentioned in that order. The order would be Chita, Zayis, Sa'ira, Dvash, Tamarim, Gefen, Uteina Barim. Okay? So why did the Torah write it in such a way? Here as well, asked the Meshech Chochmah, why did they only complained about they didn't mention anything about Zayis or Dvash. Why isn't it mentioned here as well? And one place else as well, it's mentioned in last week's Parsha. Where does it say? No, one second. What is the Parsha Shlach? Hold on a second. Yes, in the fruit which they brought, the Meraglim brought back. What did they bring back? Right? What fruit did they bring back? They brought back the Eshkol Anovim Echot, that's grapes. Why didn't they bring back from the olives and from the dates? So it says the Meshech Chochmah, a very interesting point. He says the Jewish people were unfamiliar with dates and unfamiliar with olives. They didn't grow in Mitzrayim. And therefore, since they were unfamiliar with these fruits, just bringing them, showing this new fruit, which they had never really seen before, which is interesting because they did have use olive oil. Okay, we'll leave that aside for the moment. But certainly as far as the dates are concerned, they had no experience of dates in Egypt. Mamela, all the fruit which they recognized were grapes, figs, and pomegranates. So therefore, wherever it comes along, it mentions those three fruits. It mentions over here that this is not a place for sowing, i.e. wheat and barley, and it's not a place for fruit, i.e. which fruit, figs, grapes, and pomegranates. That's what they were used to in Egypt. And similarly, in Parsha Shlach, the Meraglim brought back those fruit because they were used to having that fruit. And now they could see the super size of these fruit of Eretz Canaan compared to what they had in Mitzrayim. Whereas if they brought them back olives and dates, they wouldn't mean anything to them, and it wouldn't have anything what to compare it, because they didn't have those. They weren't unfamiliar with that such a fruit. So therefore, that's why I didn't have them. And that's why, says the Meshech Chochmah, that's why in Parshas Eikev it mentions Eretz Zeh Shemen Udvash, because these were the two new kinds of fruit which the Jewish people were being introduced to, because they were now entering Eretz Yisrael, which they had not been used to eating or using before. Okay, let's continue. Pasuk Zayin.
El Moshe Lemor. Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, Kach es ha mateh v'hakhel es ha'edah ata v'haron achicha v'dibartem el hasela le'eneihem v'nasan meimav V'hotze saw lahem mayim min hasala v'hish ki saw es ha'edah v'es be'iram. Okay, so let's see. It means take the staff and gather together the assembly,
the community, right?
you and Aaron, your brother, and you shall speak to the rock before their eyes,
right?
and it will give its water,
Okay.
and you shall bring forth for them water from the rock, and give drink to the congregation and to their animals.
Right.
So, and to their animals, according to Rashi, v'es be'iram mikan, from here, shechas hakadosh baruch hu, that the Holy One, blessed is He, has pity. Al mamonam shel Yisrael, on the, now I would say mamonam is money, but this English says property.
On the monetary property, on the wherewithal of the Jewish people.
Okay, and the footnote says that it's talking about the animals.
Right.
Because they got to drink. If they don't have water,
Now their livestock. It means their property, whatever the Jewish people have. It means their property, their acquisitions. Yeah, the question is, what is the big deal over here?
well, I mean, I would ask another question. I would say, why are we talking about the animals? We're talking about the people. The people are going to die if they don't drink.
No, but it mentions before that. You shall give to drink the community, the entire community, and the animals. So Esa'eda includes all the people.
Where are you reading?
From the pasuk. Read it towards the end of the pasuk. It says in the Maimon, "Asela b'shkisa Esa'eda v'esbi'iro."
Right. But no, I'm saying Rashi skips over that and goes right to the animals.
Yeah, because that's the Chiddush. The fact that he has pity on the people.
Before that, we saw that Hashem is protecting their lives. That's a lot more significant, I think.
He understands. No, so what Rashi's pointing out over here, why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu need to point out, I'm going to give you a drink, the people to drink and their animals? Giving the animals is not as nearly as important as giving the people themselves to drink.
Right.
So that's what Rashi says. The idea is that not only does HaKadosh Baruch Hu have pity on the people, but he also has pity on the animals and all the property of the Jewish people as well. I mean, I don't really see what the big deal is. I mean, what would HaKadosh Baruch Hu would have only given the people to drink and not the animals? You got Tzar Balei Chaim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has pity on. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has Rachamim al Kol B'riosav, on all his creations. Maybe a thought occurred to me now. Why is the emphasis on the Es Be'irom, their animals? שזה ושקיסס העדה ואס הבאיר, and all the animals. What's the idea of es be'irom? All their animals. So it could be that's the point of it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has special pity on the property of Klal Yisrael. Yeah. By the way, much discussion. Rashi doesn't go into it over here. What exactly was, as we're going to see, well, let's go to the next pasuk, next two psukim. Mea, pasuk tes.
Okay, it says, Vayikach Moshe et hamateh melifnei Hashem kasher tzivahu. Moshe took the staff before Hashem when he commanded him to. Okay.
As he had commanded him.
As he commanded, okay.
The HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him to take the staff. Now, we'll see in a second, what was Moshe supposed to do with the staff?
Oh, let's see. Vayakhilu Moshe v'Aaron et hakahal al pnei hasela vayomer lahem shimuna hamorim amin hasela hazeh notzi lachem mayim. Okay, so Moshe and Aaron assembled the people in front of the rock, okay, and said to them, please listen, Shimuna.
Listen now.
Listen now.
Moirim, rebellious ones.
Okay.
Hamina Sela Hazeh, from this rock, Noitzi Lochem Moim, shall we produce for you water?
Okay, so Rashi says, Vayakilu Gomer. Okay, so they assembled the people. Okay, Zeh Echad Min Hamikomot. This is one of the places. Okay, Shechezik Mu'at et Ha-Merubeh.
A small area held a lot of people.
Held a lot of people.
As it says, he congregated everybody, and the entire congregation facing the cellar.
Oh.
So that means it's a very small area, and that they all were there.
Okay, and then the next one is, let's see. Hamin ha-sela hazeh notzi. Okay, so from this rock we will bring. Lefi shelo hayu makirin oto. Lefi, according that they could not makir, no.
Because, why did they say, Hamina Sela Hazeh Noitzi Lachem Mayim? It's like they're asking a question, albeit rhetorical, but they're asking a question. Okay? Because they didn't know which was the correct rock. The rock of Miriam, they couldn't find it. They didn't know which was the rock of Miriam. Why?
Okay.
Because the seller went and rolled the Yoshav Loi Bein Hasloim, when its ability to act as a well stopped, because Miriam had died, therefore it joined all the other rocks, because it became a regular rock again.
A regular rock, yeah.
Okay? So Yisrael was saying to them, what difference does it make? Right? Lokach omalehem hamoirim sarvonim, Loshen Yevani shoitim. Moirim es moireim, like kind of to instruct the teachers. Is it possible that we could take water out of a rock which we haven't been commanded to?
Oh.
Okay, I just want to end off with a vault over here. I mean, it's not good to what it was. I just had an interesting thought. It says they were supposed to, Moshe and Aaron were supposed to have spoken to the rock. And instead, what Moshe Rabbeinu did, he hit the rock. It's a shaila whether this was the particular mistake of Moshe Rabbeinu, or it was some other mistake that he called the people rebellious, but there are various other explanations. But that's for sure, in that aspect, Moshe Rabbeinu differed from what he was originally told. Originally told to speak to the rock, and he ended up hitting the rock. Now, what is very interesting, I think we mentioned this in Parshas Bereishis, is a very important principle. We say, "Ba'asara mamoros nivra olam." The world was created with 10 utterances. So let me ask you, I'll give an example. When water flows along a river, okay, is it an entirely automatic action? Or is it that the malach or the spirit that's in charge of the water is told by Hashem, flow, and it listens to HaKadosh Baruch Hu when it flows? So there's as we say in the Mishnah in Avos, the 5th parak of Avos says, "Ba'asara ma'amoros nivra olam." The world was created with 10 utterances. Says Ramotcha Pogromansky, who was one of the last Rosh Yeshiva in Telz. He survived the war, but unfortunately he was nifted a lot long after the war. A genius, absolute genius. He did not learn Gemara till he was about 17 years old. By the time he was in his middle 20s, he had mamash how do you say? He was a genius, the kid. Anyway, the Maisa, he was also a very deep thinker as well. Anyway, he says a very interesting principle. By the fact that it says HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Hashem said, "Let there be light." That perforce indicates that the light listened to Hashem and fulfilled what HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him to do. Why? Because why did Hashem have to utter and say, "Let there be light"? If it's something automatic, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everything creation works automatically. Why did Hashem have to say anything? It automatically would come into being. The mere fact it was a maimah, it was an utterance of Hashem, as Hashem said. Who's he saying to? Saying something without any recipient of the words is like talking to the wall, right? Obviously, the actual mere fact that the Hashem is saying something, it's inherently implies that there is a listener, and the listener is accepting what Hashem says and carrying it out. Well, carrying out is a question. But Maisa, every single thing in creation, when it heard what Hashem's request was, or wish, Kosh Baruch Hu's wish was, it immediately carried it out. So it says by the mere fact it says, Hashem said, "Let there be light." How did light come into existence? The spirit of light became light, created light, or it brought light into being, shall we say. It followed the instructions of Hashem when Hashem said, "Let there be light," and light came into existence. The spirit of light fulfilled what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted, and there light came into existence. So Lamaisa, I was just thinking about over here as follows. So just to think, what is the difference when by speaking to the rock or hitting the rock? The Chayra, when Kosh Baruch told Moshe to speak to the rock, he's saying, in the same way as I made those 10 utterances to make creation, I want you to now to speak to the rock and tell the rock, produce water. Now that is a much higher level of recognition of Hashem's control over everything than by hitting the rock. Hitting the rock is like the way nature runs, where everything is hidden, Kiva Yochel. Even when Moshe Rabbeinu hit the rock, if Hashem is not saying to the rock, produce water, Moshe can hit the rock till he's blue in the face. It's not going to help. The only way that Moshe Rabbeinu hitting the rock can actually cause that the water will be produced by the rock is if Hashem follows suit by with Moshe hitting the rock. Akash Baruch Hu tells the rock, produce water, and it follows. So Akash Baruch Hu wanted that power of, shall we say, creation, of something coming into being to be given to Moshe Rabbeinu that he could also do that. And Moshe, whatever the cheshbon was, why he didn't do it, Moshe in that respect failed, and instead of actually speaking to the rock and the rock listening to Moshe and thereby then producing water, Moshe Rabbeinu used the physical track, let's call it, and he hit the rock, which meant really in essence saying Moshe Rabbeinu is hitting the rock until that Kosh Baruch Hu would now tell the rock and produce water, which is a totally different level of shall we say, of running the way the creation and nature runs. So that was the major thing, major, shall we say, drawback in what Moshe Rabbeinu did, that he didn't speak to the rock, rather he hit the rock, which is like he brought down that whole level of recognition of Hashem's creation to a much lower level. Okay, very good. Okay, gone a little bit over time.